The day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side.
And it's been really quite well suppressed. Why? Why has communism never really taken hold? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because for 10 years, the United States fought a war against communism in Southeast Asia. You guys did that. We can look back now and we can see the results that you couldn't see back then. You couldn't see it then, you didn't know what was going on, you were young men, just trying to stay alive, trying to do your duty. But here, 40-some years after the fact, communism has failed. And there's the rub, as Shakespeare put it. Communistic regimes cannot compete with free enterprise systems. They don't have the money. It's the very nature of communism. So even though the United States forces pulled out of Vietnam for whatever reasons, good or bad, the Vietnam War effectively stopped the spread of communism. Soviets spent billions of dollars trying to further communism. Communism did not prevail. And what was achieved there by you guys in Vietnam has a very direct effect on why we're still basically a free country and a free world to this day. There are still outposts of communism. There's still Cuba, there's still North Korea. But essentially, communism did not prevail. But we can see now that the Vietnam War was not a pointless war, ultimately, in the end. Were mistakes made? Oh, sure, absolutely. You know, it's not very well known that the United States military never lost a single battle in Vietnam. The media doesn't report this. It's a fact, though. The United States never lost a single military battle on the fields of Vietnam. Not one. If you want to say the war was lost, it was lost by the politicians, not by the soldiers. But in the end, what was achieved was the death of communism, and we have you to thank for it, and my generation and the people that follow will recognize that, and historians will go down in history looking on Vietnam differently than Vietnam was regarded just after the war ended. The Vietnam War was not a pointless war. There was a lot of pointless things about the war. There was a lot of unfortunate aspects, but something good came out of it. And the betterment of the world is what came out of that war. And once again, I just want to end everything by saying that you don't hear it enough, and you didn't hear it enough, but we certainly do want to thank you for your service. Thank you for the sacrifices. Thank you for the blood. Thank you for everything you did. You are appreciated. You will always be appreciated. And one day, when historians look back on the Vietnam War, in 100 years and 1,000 years, they will see what you achieved there. Thank you.
Well, first of all, since we've been talking about ambush sites, I told this story yesterday, but the radio operators would have to make contact with the various ambush sites. And a lot of times we didn't get any answer. And they'd fallen asleep.
Sit reps.
So they'd go, somebody'd go, Hokel, go over to that ambush site and wake them up. And I go, what? They might be pretty excitable. And he said, just do it, Hokel. So I'd be creeping up, dark as hell, not even stars it seemed. And I go, hey guys, wake up. Hey guys, it's me, wake up. And I always thought, what a way to go. You know, ambushed by your own men. Anyway, I taught Vietnam at college. And one of the, I don't want to get too academic here, I'll come up with another funny story, but I will say this. John Keegan, a preeminent military historian, British historian, he's written about 12 books on war. His opinion, which I value highly, is that Vietnam was a tactical defeat, possibly. It was a tactical defeat in the war and containment against communism, but it was a strategic victory because after Vietnam, the Chinese believed that they had always used the rhetoric that we were a paper tiger. But after 60,000 dead in 10 years, they respected our ability to stay and defend an ally. And when Richard Nixon made his opening to China in 1971, they were more than willing to come on board because their biggest enemy was the Soviet Union, which they shared a 3,500-mile border with. And they believed that with the United States as their ally, that the Soviets would back down. And they were right. The Soviets were horrified of all the numbers of the Red Chinese Army, along with the technical superiority of the United States Navy, Army, and military. And they sat down, and President Nixon managed to break the impasse that was the Cold War. We had the first strategic arm limitations treaties with the Soviets. They started we both started to cut back on our missiles. The Chinese scared the hell out of the Soviets. I read Kissinger's biography. When Nixon and Kissinger went to Moscow in 1972, Brezhnev made very, very virulent statements to the press, but once they got behind closed doors, there was nothing that they wouldn't do to keep America from falling into the arms of China. And I believe that our stand in Vietnam was vital to that process. If we were in fact a paper tiger, there is certainly no reason for the Chinese to use us in their diplomatic struggle with the Soviets. And if the Soviets thought we were a paper tiger, there would be no reason for them to be scared credulous of the Chinese and the Americans. So we started a three-pronged diplomatic game, and the Cold War, it was still cold, but it wasn't as cold. And inevitably, the Soviet Union failed. They could not. They were spending a third of their gross domestic product on the military, and we were spending about 12%, and we were head and shoulders above them. And by the time we had computers and multiply targeted reentry vehicles, they had just about given it up. So I think that we were the grunts and the foot soldiers who fought on the ground in Asia, and I tell all my students, and as I say, not just I, but John Kagan said that it may have been a tactical defeat, but it was a necessary war, and it led to the overall victory. And I'm very proud of that, and we all should be very proud of that. And that is not some nutbag right-winger. John Kagan is a very respected military authority, and I'll be proud to stand with him. Anyway, not to leave it on too high a note, I will say that I'm very proud to have been a member of Charlie Company. I can't say it started out that way when I got sent there.